Hey y'all, it's Jon Ray, and today I'm doing a mystical interpretation of Genesis 2:18 through 25, the creation of Eve from Adam's rib. Now, if you grew up in a religious tradition, this might have been taught to you as a literal origin story, but from a mystical perspective, this passage is about something deeper and it's far more personal. Neville Goddard would say Adam is your conscious mind and Eve is your subconscious mind, which means this story isn't just about relationships. It's about what happens inside of you when your conscious assumption, the identity you've chosen, is accepted by your subconscious and begins to form something real that gives you actual evidence and feedback. This story is really about how ideas become embodied and your imagination becomes something tangible for you to experience in the physical world. So let's go to the scripture and break it down. Genesis 2:18 says, Yahweh God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him." And this passage isn't about loneliness. This is about creative partnership within you. Your conscious mind, Adam, can choose, imagine, and assume. But without the subconscious, Eve, which feels, accepts, and brings forth form, creation doesn't happen. So think back on this. Have you ever had a great idea that came to you, but you couldn't find the inspiration to act on it? You know, you've got this great idea, and yet why can't you take any action? And in that moment, there's just not an urge or a feeling that you should move forward. And that's what happens when you're acting from Adam alone, the conscious mental construct alone, because it's not enough to only think about something. You have to feel it as real, as if it's already yours. And that's what the subconscious is for. That's what Eve does. And when the conscious mind and the subconscious align, this is when creation really begins and starts to get some momentum. So Genesis 2:19 through 20 says, "Out of the ground Yahweh God formed every animal, but for Adam there was not found a helper suitable for him." So this is the search for the right vibes. You're trying to find that thing that's truly meant for you. And there's all kinds of forms and options that are going to arise in your life. And so these are the animals in this passage, and they represent external attempts to fix what's actually an internal struggle. Tell me down in the comments if this has ever happened to you. You really want to feel whole. You want to know yourself. And so because you can't find that inside, you start to chase validation outside of you from people in your life. You become a people pleaser, or something might feel off in your business. And so instead of getting quiet, really asking for light to be shed on that and for something to be put on your heart, you just throw money at the first coach or consultant or SaaS product that says that they can fix your problem. But none of those solutions, quote unquote, end up sticking because they're not coming from a union between the conscious and subconscious minds. They're not a co-creative partnership between you and God. They're not coming from within. Those are solutions that are being birthed out of desperation. And Adam's helper doesn't come from something outside of him. It comes from his own substance. That's his rib, and so does yours. Genesis 2:21 through 22 says, Yahweh God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep and took one of his ribs and made a woman. So this is where the real magic happens. The conscious mind, which is Adam, goes into this deep sleep. And this symbolizes the moment where you've assumed something and then you let it go. You're no longer worried about it or fearful about it or agitated by it. You're no longer striving. You're resting in the assumption that it's already been given. You've moved into the Sabbath. And it's from this state, not thinking but trusting, that Eve is formed. Eve, the subconscious, takes what you've assumed in the conscious mind and begins to build it into form. And if you've ever had a vision and felt it deeply and then released it into stillness and then watched life start to shift around you, that's this moment. Even just declaring something for yourself and then getting really quiet and getting curious about the feelings and sensations in your body, that's your subconscious, the energy that creates worlds, your co-creative ability with God, starting to build momentum and move forward, and you've entered into creative sleep, and something is forming from your own rib, your own internal alignment. So Genesis 2:23 says, "The man said, 'This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She will be called woman because she was taken out of man.'" When your inner world starts reflecting back real results, your reality begins to match your assumption, and you'll recognize it. This is mine. This is what was meant for me. This came from me. And you know when something is yours and not from ego, but from the deep knowing that your world is yourself outpictured. It's you pushed out. And this verse is that moment when you see your assumption taking shape and you realize, it didn't come from hustle. It came from alignment. And you're meeting your own reflection. And in that moment, you know that you did it. Genesis 2:24 says, "Therefore a man will leave his father and his mother and will join with his wife, and they will be one flesh." And so this is the mystical marriage of thought and feeling. The conscious mind chooses, the subconscious accepts that choice, and together they become one flesh. And this is when your vision becomes physical, when your internal state fuses with outer form. And that's what manifestation is, not just imagining something, but becoming it. Genesis 2:25 says, "They were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed." And this is the naturalness of true alignment. When you live in your assumption as if your desire is already there, and you do that without self-consciousness, without doubt, without fear, without worry, that's when you're spiritually naked and unashamed. There's no pretending. There's no performance. There's no, "Oh no, what if this doesn't work?" You are who you say you are, and the world starts to respond to that truth. And that's what pure alignment feels like, and it's an incredibly powerful state of consciousness to be in. So let's anchor that state with a prayer practice, and we'll call this Unite with Your Subconscious. And this practice is for when you're imagining something, but you're not really feeling it, you're not trusting it yet, or you're not seeing or feeling the energetic movement of it. So we'll start sitting quietly, take a deep breath, and just bring to mind your chosen assumption, the desire that you want to know as already being yours, and see in your mind the version of you you're becoming. And I want you to say out loud or to yourself, "I now enter the deep sleep. I release control. I trust my subconscious to bring this into form." And then visualize your inner Eve, your subconscious, just gently holding and rocking that assumption, shaping it, breathing life into it, and then rest in the knowing my world is forming within me. In our next video, we'll move into the moment of temptation, the serpent, the tree, and the fall, the drama of the Bible. We'll explore how doubt enters, how separation happens, and how to return to the state of alignment that we just built in the subconscious, this marriage between the conscious and subconscious mind. To get an email when the next video is released or to request a Bible verse interpretation, go to BibleMystic.com. And if you've ever felt like your vision was alive inside you, but not yet reflected outside, like, comment, subscribe. Let's be in this together and provide support to one another. Share in the comments, what assumption are you ready to surrender to your inner Eve, to let it become flesh? Put it in the comments. We'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.